In this video, we'll have a look at the Island Base Starter, which allows us to create kitchen island cabinets quickly in a variety of different configurations. So we'll just place it at 0, 0. And if you look in the notes for this video, you'll see that there is a document that outlines the details for each of the different prompts and options that you have available. And so we'll just go through some of those in some detail here in the video, and then you can review those in more detail inside of that document. So here you can see that the width and the depth are grayed out, they're not editable, and that's because the platform width and platform depth define the size for this product, and then the extensions are added onto that and the cabinets are sized inside of those. And so for this cabinet, we have a number of different options. Here we have the option to split with divisions or split with the carcass. So if you use multiple boxes to make an island like this, so on the front, if you have a couple of different cabinet types, if you wanted to split those with divisions, make one large box and have a division between them, you could do that. Or you can have split carcass so that each box is made independently and then it all comes assembled together to create your island condition. You have an option here for what type of base molding you have. You can select from any of the different base molding options. You can specify what the toe kick height, and that's going to control the height of your base for this cabinet, and then the molding would be applied on that. We have some corners on the angle, and so we can specify what those dimensions are. And some of that's driven from our corbel selection as well. So I'll just go ahead and draw it. I'll put in a couple of items and then draw it as is, and we can look in more detail at that particular item. So there you can see just the empty product starter showing with the corbels on the corners. So the first thing that we'll note is that the corbels, you have different selection options for the base block and for the corbel, and those are actually going to define a lot about this product and the sizes and info from there. The other thing you'll notice is if you select on certain parts of this, like the corbels or the base molding itself, they're not actual parts for manufacture. So if you do get an error like that, just go ahead and say OK and select a different component of the product. So if I just select on the panel there, for example. So what you'll see is in the corbel selection, we have different options that we can select from there. Just the standard Osborne wood product corbels at the moment, and so we can select none as well. So if we wanted to say none, it would reduce the countertop and just have the corner cut off there. It's going to use whichever is the larger of those two corbels to determine the width of the corner extensions, and the depth for those extensions is driven from the depth of the corbel. So you can see here that the top and bottom depths of the extensions are different, and that's all based on what the corbel selection is. So if I change that to none, then that would be driven from there. So you'll see that we have numbers in there, but a lot of those are calculated based on what the corbel selection is, and so we can specify different things, and you'll see on some of them that those are driven from the corbel size, and so we can specify how far it's overhanging. When you have the corbel size, details about that, how far the countertop's overhanging. The countertop is really just for drawing purpose, so you can just draw something to represent what the thickness of the countertop is and get your info from there. The countertop is going to add to the height of the product, just like the standard Microvellum items. And so you can see all the different details about how that product is calculated there. So I'll just draw that up with the no corbel on the top. So there you can see we've got the extension on the bottom to account for our corbel selection, and no extension on the top. It's just got the angled corners in order to allow for that corbel. And so if we go down to the width there, you can see it's calculating the width of that angled piece based on the width of our corbel plus that dimension that we specified, and then our base extensions are out from there. And so this works like a standard bay starter in the sense of you have openings and you insert products into those. So if we go to a top view, it actually has 4 different sides that we can insert products onto. We have options for each of those ends to whether they're cabinets or just panels, and the sizes of the cabinets are going to calculate based on what those selections are. So if you just had panels on the ends, then the front and back sections would be wider, and if you adjust the depth of the cabinets, it's going to adjust the size of the ones in the middle. And in order to account for that, it's going to add these filler panels in between the corner piece and the side of your cabinets. And so lots of flexibility as far as what you can build and how you can build that. There's options for including back corners, so if you did want to use this up against a back wall, for example, you would have the option to do that here. So if we go to our back, we can say no angled back corners, and we'll just put a back panel across there instead, and we'll just go ahead and say OK on that. And so now you can see that basically it's just a wall-mounted piece, that the middle cabinets are now deeper and they go right back to the wall, and your end cabinets in from the sides. So lots of different options that you can have for that type of product. So some other options that we have on this product, if we go to the product prompts here, we have the option for each of the ends so that we can fill in what type of components we want to put in those cabinets. And so that's just like a standard starter product. We can stick in any of the inserts. Some of these corners have calculated values for the things like the left cabinet depth in order to keep those things together. Same thing for the right. We can add items into them. You can see each of the cabinets has the option for an open finish in each of the different components, and so we can specify whether it's an open finish. If we're using split carcass, we can specify that per bay as well. Then on our fronts here we have an option for a bay quantity, so we can specify how many bays across the front of that cabinet, and then across the back, same thing, we can specify how many bays across the back of that cabinet. And also on our back we can specify an arc extension, so if we wanted to put this is an island counter with a bar overhang kind of thing, and we want to put an extension of maybe 12 inches of arc on there. If we just refresh on here, you'll see there's a dimension from the corner as to how much straight dimension is going to be added in there, and so we can specify that. We have our standard product materials options that are in there, and so if we go ahead and draw that, you can see the countertop overhang, the radiused overhang that hangs off of that cabinet. And so now I'll just fill up the bays with some cabinets just to give you an idea of how this all comes together. So here, if we review what I've added in here, we've got open doors on the left with no doors on the left with a wine rack trellis insert, and then we've got some open shelves on the right end. We've got one bay with 2 doors and a second bay with 3 drawers, and then at the back just a pair of doors with some adjustable shelves. And so if we have a look at that cabinet, you can see how all of the parts and pieces come together in that cabinet and give us a very custom island condition that we can use to place in our drawing.